Howdy friends, Guthrie Trapp here coming to you again from East Nashville, Tennessee. Hey, this little lesson here is going to be called What is Phrasing? And we're going to get into a little bit of that. First off, I want to make sure you guys had a real happy and safe Labor Day weekend. Man, wrapping up summer, getting on into fall here pretty soon. Man, the time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? Man, thanks so much to everybody. I got to say this little spiel real quick. Thanks for the encouraging comments. Thanks for you guys that donated to my tip jar. Which is in the links below. It's my PayPal and Venmo. If you want to throw me some tip, I'm putting out the tip jug on YouTube, folks. If you want to donate to that, much obliged. Keeps the inspiration going and the channel going. And just thanks for all the support, man. I really appreciate it in a crazy world we live in. Man, you guys are making me feel good. Happy to share some guitar stuff. Please check out Artist Works for a much more in-depth lesson curriculum on all this stuff that I'm just scratching the surface on here with the YouTube videos. These are all intended to, of course, draw attention to the other stuff I'm doing in my life. If you want to do a private lesson or Skype, that's also really great. I can hone into your style and your ability level and all that stuff. So happy to do that always. But other than that, folks, let's jump into this. So when I'm looking at this when I think of phrasing, it's much like having a conversation. It's the notes on the guitar I equate to the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I'm not talking about A, B, C, D, the keys. I'm talking about building words and creating sentences and stuff like that. Very much the same on the guitar. We're going to use these notes to create these phrases that are saying something musically. They have a starting point, they have an ending point. Could be something like this. In the key of A. Very simple right out of the pentatonic, but it has a starting point and an ending point. I'm starting on the 5. In this instance, I'm not sure what I just did, but I'm starting on the 5 on this one, out of A. Right, that's an example. Just a simple little major riff in A, but that's a phrase, right? This is a phrase. Anything like that, any little musical thing is a phrase. I mean, it should be making sense musically. So again, when we're starting, a lot of times I'll start on the 5 to ramp up to the 1. So if my target note is this, A, I might, instead of starting right on the A, I might start on the 5 and give it a little pickup notes, right? So some pickup notes. It's just a little longer phrase, so it just gives it a little bit kind of a little bit more of a place to go, right? You're just saying something a little bit more there. So if I did it on the low string, so we're using that pentatonic scale, but we're not just sticking to it and playing it, you know, directly out of the sequence of the pentatonic, like this. It's the same as the scale. If you just play the scale over and over and over again, you're kind of stuck on this hamster wheel of like, where do I get off? You know, how do I actually make some music? One of the things I really recommend is really listening. Of course, we're always going to be listening to what we're playing. Maybe hum along or sing along, at least in your head, to what you're playing, and really focus on the sound that's coming out. Close your eyes if you have to, but what we're trying to do is we want to have a balance of looking at the fingerboard to know where we're at, but we really want to be listening to what we're playing. So leaving some space, you know, and really saying a melody rather than just playing notes that you know that are under your fingers, that just might not mean anything. Another thing I want to talk about is bending up to the right note. I see a lot of guys on the pentatonic that'll get to a certain spot, say it's that's not really a good note to bend on because you're not really heading in any direction. So if I bend, I want to be bending up to one of those target notes. So if I'm in A, which we have been the whole time. So that bend right there, I'm bending from the 4th fret G string up to the 6th fret, which is the major third of A. I'm bending up to the major third. So really being conscious of the note you're bending to. If I bend more of like a half step thing, it would be this. I would bend so you're bending to the note that's in the pentatonic or in the scale as well. Just be real conscious of those notes that you're bending, because sometimes they don't sound right. So like that was a good example of the one I gave you before, bending from the, whatever this is, the 6. It kind of takes you out of the scale. That would be the scale note. That would be the major 7. So that really doesn't work that well. So try to keep it in, for now, just in the scale or the pentatonic sound. So that's a good little thing. Another thing too is record yourself. Record yourself on your iPhone or anything just simple to where you can listen back to what you played. Because I'm telling you, it's like being in the studio. If you record something and you're playing it and you're in the middle of it and your hands are feeling it and everything and you're trying to execute it perfectly, when you get on the other side of the glass and your hands aren't on the guitar anymore and you're just listening to yourself as a band member in the band or in the song, you start hearing things differently, and it affects your playing. It makes you a better player because you're able to hear like, oh wow, I played like 4 or 5 notes. I shouldn't have played too many notes. I could really simplify that and it'd be much more effective. Or you'll hear a melody, and it's just gaining experience with that. So record yourself on your phone and listen back to it. Still fighting my allergies. Listen back to it and really kind of check yourself out. A really good thing to do. We also want to play with feeling. Even though we're talking about phrasing, the feel is directly related to that. Just a simple little riff like this, like we did. You can put some feeling into that. It doesn't have to be just like a pentatonic exercise. Another thing that I wanted to focus on is practicing through the different sounds too, like some phrases that work over the major sound like we're doing. And then don't forget to practice some over the minor pentatonic too, like we're going to A minor. That's a good little riff right there. Just right out of the pentatonic. We're ending on that 1. We're wrapping it up. We're just saying a little something. So when you're practicing your phrasing, maybe try like a little call and response thing with yourself. Like the blues licks are great for this stuff. So if we're in the minor pentatonic, try something like this. Starting to play a little bit more, still right out of the pentatonic, but you can see what we're doing. We're starting to take the muscle memory that we know and the sound of the pentatonic that we know, and we're just starting to kind of slowly break out of that structure and start making more music. So, using the 1, the flat 3, the 4, the 5, right, coming back a little bit. That 1 as our anchor and our home base, of course, So one more time with that little phrase, because that's pretty cool. And I'm holding that 4 note out, or that flat 3 note out just a little bit, this one. Maybe even put a little bend on there just to give it some spice, right? Right, add another little note, the flat 7. Here's another one. Now that time I broke out of the pentatonic and I went and we've talked about that, adding the 2 to the pentatonic, which gives you this. You're just adding that B note in to the pentatonic, which gives you a really cool. Directly related to phrasing, because if I didn't have that note to work with, which is fine, we can work with the pentatonic by itself, but you get a little boxier kind of feel. As opposed to this kind of more triplet or rolling kind of feel with a little bit more melody in it. Slowed down that. I'm not going to go through all this really slow, but that's the idea. And then again, low octave. So that gives you a lot of stuff to work with. But getting back to the phrasing, just those, you know, the call and the response thing is really cool. And what I mean by that is, like, the first riff could be, say we did this, the next riff would be, right? So you're kind of having a little conversation with yourself on the guitar, and that's cool because that's going to really get you hearing those phrases. And you know, just taking a few notes at a time is good. Another thing that I think kind of helps, that you might not be thinking of all the time, is when you're working out of this pentatonic shape, or the major, we're looking at, we're playing all 6 strings there, but we're breaking that up into 2 octaves. Here's 1 octave, and here's your 2nd octave. So anything we do on this 1st octave, you can tie those together because it's cool. It doesn't sound like you're playing the same thing because it's drastically different in pitch. You're going from the high strings to the low strings, but they're technically the same notes. So the guitar repeats itself a lot. So again, with the phrasing, if I do this, I messed that up, but I'm playing this a little bit, but I'm playing the same notes. So if I have a phrase, that's the exact same phrase played on 3 different octaves. This A, and then down to this A. So, you know, the guitar repeats itself a lot. So try not to look at this as and it is a vast thing here. We can play any music in the world on this fretboard, but try not to let it overwhelm you, because the cage system repeats itself. The notes really repeat themselves a lot. So the more you see this, you'll kind of start seeing some more common ground here as you work up the fingerboard. It's not quite as hard as it might seem when you're first looking at this big fretboard. So there's a little lesson on some phrasing stuff. I didn't get into a whole lot, but there's more to come with that. Again, please check out the Artist Works stuff, which is amazing. You can do video exchanges with me back and forth on that. Private lessons, Skype lessons, mailing list. You know, I've got to check all the boxes here, folks. But again, thanks a bunch. This is just a little lesson here on the holiday, and then we'll get into some more this week. But yeah, thanks again, and we'll see you guys real soon. All right, take care. Bye.